club t-shirt or something.
All right, we're going to begin this study session tonight to look at the municipal complex renovation plans. Very exciting stuff. With that, go ahead and take it away, please.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Very happy to be bringing you an update on the municipal complex renovation. I believe you got a copy of some plans that Mr. McKinney and Mr. Ward from the McKinney Partnership will be going over with you tonight. Just a quick background for those of you who may not be completely familiar. This project has been about 11 years in the works now, since the bond vote of 2008. Of course, well aware that with the failure of the Central Library at that time, the project sat dormant as a GO bond. But with the nearing completion of the new Central Library, that building will become available and our plans can move forward. For the municipal complex that was approved by the voters in 2008, an obligation of the $11.25 million. A couple of things that I think kind of flavor our project today, where it was versus what was even conceived as far back as 2015. Was the project began with a master plan in 2008, which conceived a variety of things, including a senior center in the library and allocated space and monies for that. Since then, the council's made some decisions. We've moved to a standalone senior center, and we think that can change and allow that space to be available and potentially that funding going forward. I may pause right here on that note and just ask Ms. Walk to kind of clarify how that funding that was allocated for the senior center that was conceived in the 08 bond, how that's now could potentially be accessible for us in this project since we're building the standalone center.
Thank you, Terry. As you'll see, I think in this presentation, the original bond authorized by the voters of $11.25 million, every penny will be needed for these renovations for sure. Prices have not gone down since 2007 and 8, of course. So the question has always been, could we spend the full $11.25 million on this facility now that we've decided to do the senior center at another location? And we believe we can, but we are planning to file a declaratory judgment action at district court to make sure, so that when we go to sell the bonds, we will have that decision behind us, so we'll know for sure that we can get that full $11.25 million. So we'll be taking those steps in the next couple of months. Don't think it'll take a long time. But we're going to go through that process so we know we have the full funding available for this project.
Thank you for that, Catherine. And the other thing that kind of flavors our discussion, and you see that on as attachment B in the memo I sent, as Catherine alluded to, we are dealing with a budget that was 11 years old. We are dealing with a different. I thought one of the interesting things in going back and reading the master plan in 08 and even subsequently the update in 2015 is we've added a department since 2008. The IT department wasn't even a department on its own, and its needs are, as you well know, growing along with in this plan that you'll see tonight. The thing to remember is this is a 25 to 30 year plan for what we think will be with the municipal complex. So what was asked of the department heads and subsequently the supervisors and others is, where do you think you'll be in 20 and 30 years from a staffing perspective? And so this plan builds on that concept. This is a long-term commitment.
But to clarify, it won't take 25 to 30 years to build.
Hence the capital.
Okay,
and
just making sure everyone understood that. It's a vision for what we need.
Well, you did see
for that
attachment
long.
B. We did put together a project schedule.
Good.
But with that, we will. There will potentially be some considerations that this council and other future councils will have to make considerations in how does our bond funding, can we supplement that with additional capital funds to complete the project. Again, not optimum to deal with 11 years of inflation on your project, but we'll do the best we can. And I know Rick has mentioned, or may mention tonight, there are some cost estimating that's done based upon what you'll see tonight that's still being refined, still being kind of scrubbed down. So in future weeks, you'll see a more refined schedule of the budget, what that would look like in subsequent years. So it can be planned for out of the capital projects in addition to what's issued in the bond after the declaratory judgment. So there's still some work being done, but just spoiler alert, we're gonna need some help on this project to get it done, and that's to be understood. Additionally, there's some concerns I think out there in the market just of inflation maybe increasing at a little higher rate than normal due to tariffs and other things that are subsequent factors in that. So now that we've gotten through all the boring stuff, let's get to the cool stuff, which is what's really going on with the project. And so you also saw in your memo, just very briefly on page 1, you kind of see the work that's been done to date. The schematic design, you'll see pretty detailed schematic designs for the municipal court, the police department. We went ahead and planned for, as you move things, Building C in the City Hall Administration Building, this building. And then we are working towards a more refined schematic designs over the next months. And the focus of this project will shift subsequently and entirely to the development center. You'll see those in the upcoming weeks. So that work is ongoing as well. And so there's been a lot of work in those areas. Again, just to kind of point out to you, the 2008 bond conceived work in buildings, the municipal court, which is Building A, the police department, and then also the library buildings. So the other buildings, such as City Hall and the annex to it, where utilities is today, HR and IT, were not part of the bond funding. So those will have to be funded in a different way throughout the project. So again, just a couple of factors to bear in mind. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. McKinney and Mr. Ward to really walk you through what's in front of you in the presentation.
Well, thank you, Terry. We're excited to finally get to sit in front of all of you and bring you up to date where we are. My name is Rick McKinney with the McKinney Partnership, and this is Greg Ward. He's the project manager that's driving the project. And we've been working on this, started back in February. We had some early programming meetings. And that's the first phase we went through, is programming. And I think most of you in this room got a questionnaire, and we received the majority of those back, not all of them, but the majority of those. And we created a written program of needs, assessments, projections of staff, and growth. You know, what do we need today? What do we need in 5, 10, and 20 years? And you all had to really think through that, and I appreciate that. These drawings today reflect all of that square footage. All the wish list is met in these colored floor plans. Not that it's all going to be used in the first year. We have room for expansion in each department to accommodate the growth that was requested in those questionnaires. So we may not necessarily build out all the space, but we have allocated space to accommodate all those needs. Now, Terry used the word scrubbed. The questionnaire and the program has not really been scrubbed. I mean, we want to try to deliver and provide everything we can for the city, but when we look at the design and we look at the numbers, collectively we'll have to go through, okay, what can we do now? What can we get some additional funding to accomplish? Those type things. So, and that's called value engineering. If we get to the point where we need to say, okay, we can't do this, we need to take $2 million out of the job, we'll make it happen somehow. We can do that. So I'm going to start today just walking you through the site plan. That's the first sheet in your packet. But the thing I want you to focus on is the kind of the pink areas around the buildings, and those are the areas of modification that will happen on site. And as you'll notice, every building, the front entries have a small pink circle, and that identifies the front entry is going to be reworked. Also, some of these parking areas in the middle is a possible alternate. I think initially everybody's on board that let's just see how this parking works with the library moving away, and we're going to gain that space. So, but if we did add parking, the most affordable and the most effective parking we could add would be about 37 spaces right in the middle, and that could serve all the buildings. Upper right in the police, that upper right circle, we're going to remove that modular building. But what's going to really help us is we are touching a lot of areas in the police building, and they're 24/7. We can't even work at night on that job so what we're going to have to do is they're going to have to maybe shift departments into that modular building space, and that'll be our flex space during construction. So we'll set up temporary offices and temporary data so they can work out of that. They can attack that department. I might also add that initially there was about 3,400 square feet in the existing police building that is now court space. That's what we originally thought the scope was going to be. The scope has increased. When we really dug into the police and we saw how they were deficient in so many areas, we've touched many different parts in the police station. We'll talk about that, but we've gone from 3,400 feet to more square footage that's going to need to be worked on in the police department. And then after we're finished, the modular building goes away, the front gets landscaped, and you'll never knew it was there. Plus, we pick up the parking that was under the station. The municipal court, upper left, the court will move into this yellow color building. We're going to relocate the main entry to the west side, which is now accessible and very accessible from the vacated library parking lot. So all of that court parking and all that traffic will be shifted over here from when it was all sprinkled all around the police station. We will close the south entry of the current permit building. So you'll have the public will primarily come into the west side of the building. All the other entries in the buildings will remain the same, even in the development center lower left. We're going to maintain those same entry points into those buildings, but we're going to enhance and make them more accessible for handicap accessibility. Both those entries will be available. The parking lot over here to the west will be very, very functional for the inspectors that are coming and going at least twice a day. So they can park their vehicles right there and come in the side door. What else, Greg? Let's see. And another thing, this courtyard in the middle, we don't have a big pink circle on that, but we're proposing to build a respite space for staff. And that's that central courtyard that will be enclosed, it'll be secure, and it'll be dedicated to staff. And it'll be outdoor eating, it'll be adjacent to a new break room off the development center. It'll also create a secure space. For example, if we were having a very large study session in February where we had 100 people show up, we wouldn't meet here. We'd meet in a meeting space over in the development center, and then everyone can then flow from the development center into the administration building safely and be well lit. So those are kind of the main things on the site plan. Anything else, Greg, that I might point out?
No, I think you covered it. We're adding a new covered walkway from this building to connect over to the existing building C.
Yeah. And then also we're going to
And then
connect
also a covered walkway here.
over through the courtyard, so you could be able to get to most. You won't be able to get to the police station covered, but everywhere else you'll have covered walkways. Okay. I'm going to show you a couple aerial views. We've created a 3D.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Just real quick, did that include redoing the current covered walkway? I know it's pretty busted up. There's,
We're supposing to replace it. It's in pretty bad condition.
yeah, it's really okay. Thanks.
That's the plan. We have created a 3D model. We're going to show you that at the end of the presentation, but we've added entryways and everything, parking, everything we've talked about, and we'll look at that. We have two views. This is from the northwest, and this is from the southeast. And we'll be able to look around and zoom in on all those things. And we're going to go building by building in the sequence that they would need to be built. We have 3 buildings that we call sequential, and that is the development center has to happen first, and we're going to vacate building A, the permit building, and move all those folks to the development center. When it's vacated in about 15 months, then the court will have access to the permit building, building A. And when that's done, and we'll have, all the drawings will be prepared and bids will be taken prior to the finish of the last project. So we will be able to keep every job back to back. So the first job would be the development center, which is the library, and then we'd move into the court, and then we do the police station. The 2 other projects, they're not sequential. They can go concurrent at any time that funding's available, and those are the 2 buildings that were mentioned that Terry said are not part of the bond financing, and that's 201, this building, and HRIT. And those are smaller projects compared to the other three, that they're not tied, or they don't need for a building to be vacated before their work can be done. So they could go side by side whenever it's possible to do that. And we'll have those drawings ready as well as funding necessary. So this is our first just a blush concept. We're looking at creating entryways that are identifiable on every building with good graphics. We're also proposing that we just forget building A, B, C, and D. Nobody knows what that is. And they're gonna have real names.
Good.
And we're also we're doing some wayfinding for the entire campus. And we're gonna have a primary entrance point off of Gray Street, and then a primary entrance point off of James Garner. There'll be 2 entrance signs that will direct people into campus, and then there'll be directories outside the buildings that can direct people around, and then once you get into the building, there'll be some more graphics to do that. So it'll be fairly simple to get around the building. So
Mr. McKinney, Councilmember Holman?
And this building will say City Hall on it.
You just didn't get the rendering yet. Yeah, it's on the rendering.
Not
Noted.
municipal complex, but
Right.
City
You'll
Hall.
see, you'll
City
see.
Hall.
Okay, I've seen it, but
Yeah, I
wanna
saw
hear it
this
said.
last week, so we all thought about you, Councilmember
Thank
Holman.
Just one thing I'll get done.
We are, most of the outsides of the buildings, we are not going to expend a lot of our funds on dressing up the perimeter of the buildings. Most of it will be focused to the interior space. The entryways will be readily identifiable and they'll be freshened up. Some more landscaping. This whole entry is going to be rebuilt. It's in bad shape. It's not compliant. So, and again, you're going to see some renderings today that are our first blood. This is a very preliminary design, so we're anxious to show you that. So with that, I'll let Greg kind of talk a little bit about the development services and walk through the floor plans.
Well, like Rick said, we definitely met with all of the different departments that are moving in here and got a lot of input. And I think this is probably about our 10th version of how everything fit together as a puzzle. And I think we finally figured out how it's going to work. This front area right here is used to be a freestanding building. It was the council chambers at one time. Right now, it's currently the Lowry room, and then there's a couple of small conference rooms. We're going to use that area as basically a conference center. We're going to have a small conference center, a large conference center. We're going to redo the main entry here. This is also a public entry, but it'll be more of an employee entry to come in here. Well, the current toilets in there we're removing, and we're putting in 2 larger ADA compliant toilets. This room right here this meeting room will seat 100. We'll be able to use that for meetings like this, larger like study session meetings. We've got a small catering kitchen and a storage area and an AV off that. There's a current door right here we can use to bring in catering if we choose to do that. The good thing about this whole area is it can be partitioned off from the rest of the building, so it can be an after-hours use for the public. Starting right here is kind of everything back of here is more staff oriented, and we looked at a bunch of different options, and currently the library has a higher roof in the middle. It's about 6 foot higher, which is this area right here. You really can't tell. The ceiling in the library is flat all the way across, but we're gonna use that area as the main reception waiting area, and we're proposing to put some large skylights over that area, bringing in lots of natural light. We'll bring visitors in down this gallery space, and we're kind of envisioning, kind of a history of Norman, lots of old photographs that tell the story of Norman for visitors. We've got finance located right here. We primarily put them here because of we're proposing a new drive-through. We're reusing the book drop-off lane to be able to use that for the new utility drive-through. And then we're also proposing a central payment center that would be somewhere right here that currently all the different departments take money in, and we're trying to get away from that, and so everybody would go here to pay for, every permit and license currently that's being done in each of the different departments.
Let me mention one thing. Also, that drive-through window, we're going to use like at a bank where you look at a video screen, you're looking at a person, but the person that actually works that window will probably be over in here, but there'll be an overhead tube just like your bank, but it will be covered.
Off of this reception waiting area, where we're proposing, this is something new, a reception desk where we'll have somebody there that kind of directs traffic. When people come in and say, I need to talk to somebody about getting a building permit, they'll say, well, go over here. I need to pay, get a garage sale permit, over here. So that way, they're just kind of the gatekeeper. We've incorporated a lot of conference rooms around the perimeter of this. That way, when people come in to meet with somebody, we could just set up a meeting and they can go into these smaller conference rooms instead of going, into the planning department and meeting with that person directly. We're trying to keep the public from being able just to kind of wander around aimlessly in the building. They're still going to be able to get back into the space. Inside each space, we're proposing kind of a smaller waiting area, like a sub-waiting area, we would have an admin there that, once they get in there, they would check in again and say, I'm here to see so-and-so, and either that person would be escorted back, or whoever they're going to go see can come up and meet them and escort them wherever the meeting is. We've done, like Rick said, we've got inspector parking out here. We're doing things a little bit differently. Currently, right now, the inspectors are in each department. So we're looking at pulling out all the different inspectors and putting them in one location here, and then we would have a separate inspector entry back off the loading dock that they would come in and out of, just to keep them from coming through the front door, getting dirt on the carpet.
Like being harassed by
No, it's really about their muddy boots. It
Yeah,
really
muddy
is.
boots.
And that's
Muddy
okay.
boots.
That's fine.
So that's a little bit different, and we've located them in this area, so they're kind of between planning and public works, who a lot of the inspectors, so that way they still have access to that. Parks and Rec are going to use the loading dock to store a bunch of their materials, supplies, so we'll keep that dock open. Utilities is located up here, and then Parks and Rec over here. We've got a small break room. Instead of each of these departments having their own break room, we're moving toward one central larger break room that we'll add some windows up here. And like Rick said, we have a central courtyard that on nice days they could go out there and dine. We're also adding staff toilets and also a small fitness area. Be very similar to what you would see at like one of the newer hotels. We might have, 6 or 7 machines and maybe some small weights. We've got a couple of showers in there if people want to ride their bike to work.
We can use it.
Yeah. And I'll hit the pause button there real quick. You also will remember it as part of our discussion with TSET and some of our different certifications. That was one of the elements that's required for us to move to. I don't know if it's silver, gold status,
I think it's gold.
or what it is, but the ability for staff to have a workout room in the shower facilities for biking to work and so forth are there. So it does kind of serve a purpose beyond just
One thing.
physically fit staff.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hold on, I got Councilmember Scanlon and then Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
The last time we met in this room, we talked about energy. And so I'm wondering, at least, and I know this is all preliminary, but what kind of energy efficiencies are being ground into these designs?
Well, a couple things that all the buildings have undergone has all of the mechanical system over the last maybe 10 years, all the rooftop have been replaced with much more efficient units than they had before. A lot of the windows in the buildings are single pane glass. We're going back to thermally insulated glass. We're gonna improve. I don't think you'd want to look above the ceilings in these buildings because the insulation is just, it's helter-skelter. We gotta get all that fixed and improved. As far as LEED, if we wanted to pursue LEED design criteria, we typically like to design our buildings incorporating as much LEED as we can. When you go for a certification, number one, it costs money, and then it also causes you to compromise some things, but long-term it makes a lot of sense. So we will incorporate a lot of LEED principles in the design, water saving,
As much daylighting, like I
Natural-
said, natural lighting.
natural daylighting, and you have LED lighting throughout all the buildings, which will cut the electrical use tremendously. So those are the main things we'll do. So the buildings are, the walls are, a lot of them are masonry and brick with an insulation layer on the inside. We could increase that insulation layer. Again, it's just a matter of budget, what makes sense for us to do.
We've also had some discussions with OG&E about potentials for purchase of some of their renewables. And they have done some walks with us with some of their auditors. And additionally, there's been some discussions about some other potentials for use of some other energy sources within this that could supplement that. Whether or not they would be able to provide enough to run the entire complex is probably.
Yeah, but you
would take
preempted
some
my
work.
follow-on question, actually, so.
Yes, sir. But that's kind of where we've been. So there's been a lot of discussion about that even up to this point.
And that will
within the
continue, and
project.
presumably as we reach crunch points where decisions have to be made,
Absolutely.
will be included in.
Absolutely. We're at the point now where we will start to engage our mechanical, electrical engineers, and they will start to really scrutinize. We're working closely with Matt, the operations director for the city, about all the equipment. Two of the buildings have some real deficiencies in their ductwork, and that's Building C and Building A. And so and the police department as well. There's some issues that we have leaky ducts that are, so we're going to address all that, and we're going to put numbers to it, and we're going to look at priorities. So
I'm sure Mr. Pyle will want this new sustainability coordinator to be involved in those discussions. Daryl will want the new sustainability coordinator to be involved in those
Absolutely.
discussions as well.
I wanted to mention one thing on this break room, this central break room. We just finished a building for Emmy out by the Embassy Suites. And they came from a building down by the Postal Training Center. And they had a real diverse employee base. They had highly educated scientists in one wing of their building. And then they had people that were packing trucks and loading boxes in the other. And then they had a whole division over here that was putting together packaging of their product to be shipped all over the world. And each department had their own little break room. And to the owner's credit, they said, we want to pull all our people together. So we designed the building kind of like an H, and in the middle of the building is a central break room where everybody comes to get a cup of coffee, or they come for staff meetings, and they said it exceeded all their expectations, and it's worked beautifully as far as bringing all the departments together to work better as a group. So I think we could see some of that return here.
Councilmember Wilson?
Whenever Terry and I did the tour and prior conversations, I mentioned that I would like to see some services for homeless people. This area has a lot of transient, underhomed or homeless people, and I know that there's some sanitation needs. I get the logistics. You can't just open up City Hall and let people, nap in the halls or anything like that. However, I think as I would like to find whether it's a private group, which some people have reached out to me to do some stop station. I'm calling it stop stations. A trailer situation. So that'd probably be like a nonprofit or something. I'd like to see some way to have a place for something like that. If we can't incorporate stop stations into the city complex itself, maybe we can be forward thinking in a way that has, whether it's water hookups or anything like that. I don't have any plans like that, but this is what I do. I think about things. And so just throwing that out there, and then backing it up with the question, have we looked at that in any way? Stop stations. Terry, I know that there wasn't really room for it.
I think part of the question we would have is just the operations of it. You know, we're an 8 to 5, and someone may need a shower before 8 to 5. I think the other thing that might really be an interesting point in this, and as you look forward, is the county's doing their healthy living block. Additionally,
That might
the
be the better
Norman
place for
regional
that.
plans for what potentially could happen in the Porter area with the Porter campus may also be. I think I wouldn't say the concern. It just, do we place it that it's in the right spot for those who need it? You know, the service needs, where it's not like way outside of where they're normally would be utilizing facilities. So
And you had mentioned in our conversation, I just want to bring it to everybody, that
sure.
a lot of underhomed folks will travel wherever the library is because they can use Wi-Fi and services there. So that may move everybody over to the library at some point.
Right. And there's been some, I think there's some homes just right across the track there that have been built recently.
Yeah.
Some projects. So
I just wanted to mention that to get it on everybody's radar so that we could, as a team, possibly attack that issue in some way, which I know we're going to talk about it in Thursday somewhat in business and community affairs. I'll leave the rest of it.
Yeah, sidebar, I'm glad that you mentioned that while we're here. Will you quickly give a rundown of what we're doing in Baca? Because I'd love for all council members to attend if they are
Well, I haven't
available.
actually gotten the agenda yet, so.
It's just the presentation,
Yeah, so there's going to be a presentation on the homelessness in our area. I believe.
it's Michelle Evans, our homeless
Maybe
coordinator.
you should
is
do
here.
that. I haven't seen the thing yet.
Terry Bryant will be here.
Yes, so I think it'll be a very helpful presentation for all of council to see. So I know we don't have to attend committee meetings that we're not assigned to.
4
but that one
o'clock on
4 o'clock
Thursday.
in here on
Yeah, it should be
Thursday.
interesting, and I think that this discussion's important for our community. So.
And was a priority at our retreat.
And was a priority.
Councilor Patron, did you still have a question?
Yes. So following up on Councilmember Scanlon's talks, you all weren't here last week, so you didn't have the benefit of hearing all of that from Eugene. But we have council has passed something called Ready for 100. And we have some benchmarks that we are needing to hit for 100% renewable energy. And in doing that, I feel like it's important that we lead by example for the city. And so I'm wondering, in looking at this, as far as, especially with this particular building, that is a lot of rooftop that seems like we could be putting panels on and trying to lead by example. I disagree with that the only way to do this is by having solar farms. I think that it needs to become more the norm that people expect to see solar panels on the roofs. So I'm wondering if we could get that to be part of the bidding. And I know that we don't have just an unending budget, but this is something that council actually did pass. And then so the second part of the question goes to the parking lots. So again, we have a lot of parking space here, and I'm wondering, are we resurfacing? To me, it looks like a different design, so I assume we're resurfacing a lot of it, and I wondered if we could do permeable pavers as part of that, and some rain gardens in these islands for our runoff issues.
All of that's possible. And add some more trees too. I mean, that main lot for the development center is
Ooh, edible.
a lot of paving.
Edible gardens.
Edible gardens, that's another one, but for me, just looking at this particular building, that we could really come a long way empowering that building.
I will mention a couple things to you on that front, Ms. Councilmember Trump. We actually, I know Debbie Smith has been in contact with some representatives from the University of Oklahoma about doing an assessment of that very thing you spoke about what solar panel potential would be here, and what the potential payout would be if it would ever pencil over the course and the life of the building. But that work is underway. Additionally, there's been some discussion about what the potential could be for and I'm looking at Dr. Evenson as well, of a rain garden here in this existing detention area between the municipal court and the police department. I know there was some work, I believe, Amanda Naren has done in that area and has mentioned that to me. So that's also a potential for this project. It would be something we could do as an educational piece, along with obviously the filtration of the stormwater. I know we've also talked about the potential of exploring some of the permeable pavers and where we are going to be expanding those areas to utilize that new staff parking that was outlined in the pink between the HR building, municipal court, and City Hall could be one of those areas, again, right by the rain garden. That could be an educational piece, and for us to test, to lead that by example for folks to park there and sign it. So I think all three of those areas have been part of our discussions at this point, and will really start to flesh themselves out as we move forward.
Councilmember Bierman.
So,
And his husband
on a
had
slightly
some students
different
look at
topic,
that.
I want to be sure that
different
not just in every
proposals.
single public bathroom facility, but even some of the ones for staff, that we're including changing tables in both the men's and the women's rooms. Yes.
And wellness rooms in the facilities as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Thank you. That was
Okay. One thing, we have gone through about, like Greg says, about 5 iterations of this, we call it a block plan, and the relationship, how these departments work and the adjacencies work together, and the adjacencies are very important. So we believe with this plan that we have 100% buy-in from all the departments. Everybody's on board. So I think we're in a good place, and we're ready to quickly go to the next step.
What we didn't mention here was we were left over with a little over 3,000 square foot of additional space that we don't have anything earmarked for. That space, I think we started with it over here, and we moved it quite around, and I think we ended up with it being right here. It could be another city department, it could be a private sector space that, that works in there that you lease it out to. It could be a number of things. So we put it up front here at the closer to the doors than putting it back here in the corner. So.
And you did mention, Greg, within each department, in addition to this big expansion space, each department has its own space allocated for expansion. So that way, when they expand in the future, they don't go to some random part of the building for their new staff. They're able to expand within that area.
That's exactly
So
right.
they can-
And these lines between the different colored spaces, that's just a demarcation of the change in a department. It's not necessarily a wall. Okay, so behind the waiting room wall, where we have kind of a security, and we're real sensitive to that security, especially in light and what happened recently at another municipal complex. But the departments can communicate and travel between departments without coming out in the lobby, going down and back into a department. So it should flow very nicely.
City Manager.
Your Honor, in just timing being everything, the work with the folks at Management Partners, and part of the solution to improve the delivery of services when anybody walks in looking for assistance in pulling a building permit for whatever the project may be, a lot of the solutions identified in that Management Partners process really do come to fruition in this design. And departments being able to see other departments and solve problems on the fly, the unified break room, those are spaces where problems will get solved. Having all these folks in one building is really going to improve the workflow, and just really happy to see the design after going through the exercises with Management Partners, because we were really checking a lot of boxes with this building right here.
That's really good to hear.
Good.
I think the last thing I would add about this development center, Councilmember Bierman touched on the wellness rooms. I've had some requests for more babysitting opportunities for council meetings, so people with children, single parents can attend. And those conference rooms, I think, would suffice wonderfully. I was worried by losing that, we wouldn't have that same space, but that could work just as well, and again, be secure for the most part for the rest of the building.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else on that building? Okay, we'll move along.
So this is currently Building A, and this is the one that will be vacated when planning moves out. The new entry is on the west, like Rick said, off of the parking area, parking lot that the current library uses. There's a pretty good grade change coming up here. We'll have a number of steps as an entry. We're maintaining a accessible parking over here, and then the accessible entry would come up and go in this side door. There's a ramp over here. Like Rick said, we're trying to maintain kind of a unified entry signage. That way people can see, hey, this is a municipal building. So we're not really doing much to the exterior of the building, cleaning it up and just adding an entry. Okay, so the floor plan, we've been working with a consultant, Brinkley Sargent Wigington, that does a lot of municipal courts, police stations out of Dallas. Yeah. So we've got this building's pretty much a gut. Well, we left the existing mechanical room and some of the toilet area. This is the new vestibule entry here. You come in. It'll look a lot like municipal court when you walk in now. You'll have a waiting area here with some pay stations behind. Most of the stuff on this north side is staff related. Everything on the south side, so you'd have some public toilets. You'd come in here. You'd go through a screening process here. Everybody would walk through to get into this holding area. It's a video jury room where they kind of go over the whole process. I explain it to you, and then you kind of wait there until you get your time into the court. This is the main courtroom right here. Again, we've got some additional toilet facilities for people to use. We've got some rooms for prosecutors here to work with the public out here. Down here is a jury room with their toilet. Up here, as you come in, this is the way if the people bring in prisoners that are going through court. So there's a couple of small holding areas here. We've got most of the offices are back here, and there's kind of a back way into the court this way. And then we've got a smaller courtroom right here that seats juvenile court that seats about 18 that we currently don't have right now.
And I think Greg pointed out this court here is a court that could be expanded to if the city ever expanded to a court of record. So this is a long-term
Right.
solution for our municipal court, what you're seeing here today. And I know Ms. Guerrero could probably spend the remainder of this time talking about the great work she's done on this project. But this is, you know, a long-term solution for what's a very cramped space today.
And I know we had spoken about a court of record requiring a lot more staff, but this at least creates the physical space where that's a possibility. Can you briefly explain what the difference is between what we have and what a court of record is?
I bet you I'll turn it over to Rhonda.
I might turn that over to Rhonda to briefly
Well,
explain.
it's my understanding council would have to pass a resolution, and Catherine, interrupt me if I'm wrong, but if we find that the court is, there's so many cases coming in that we need to have a court of record, council would have a resolution or approve a resolution. At that time, we would have to have a court of record. We'd have to have a court reporter. We'd have to have more. I don't know if more prosecutors, but more prosecutors over there. We do work with 2 prosecutors a lot right now. We would have to have a mediation. We have a mediation department, but we'd have to have a full-time mental health coordinator, interpreters.
currently, do we work with the county on this when we need something of this level?
In our cases, if they're appealed, they go over to district court.
Okay.
So we're not a court of record right now. So if you have a trial, you can still appeal to court, to district court, and then it goes to criminal appeals.
Councilmember Holman?
And I think the population right now is, we could be a court of record right now with the size of our city, but again, it'd be a council. Right now, our caseload is under control. But if we had so many cases coming in, that would change jurisdiction for our penalty ranges, more fines, but right now, we're controlling our tickets. Well, the court of record, it'd be a bigger cost to the city as far as staff. We'd have to have full-time judges. Right now, we have 4 part-time judges. We don't pay them like, or their benefits. They don't have benefits. That would be a big cost to the city. So it would be a full-time judge, another more staffing for court. So, I mean, I don't know how to say what would be the benefit other than a cost.
Well, the benefit, I think, is it enables you to prosecute more crimes with increased penalties. If they're appealed, it's no longer a do-over at the district court level, which is what we do now. If we win a case and somebody wants to appeal it, we go to district court and we do it all over again, instead of like a typical appeal. So it kind of would save us that step because we'd have the court recording. So that provides a record of the proceedings, and we would go straight from municipal court to the Court of Criminal Appeals. So there are some benefits, but it is maybe more of a long-term solution than something that we need right now.
Also, our penalty ranges would increase. So the penalty would be for a petty larceny or something, it'd be a higher penalty for the defendant. Jailable offenses would be a higher, I mean, they'd be in jail maybe longer, the penalty range.
So definitely 25 to 30-year plan.
This
Councilmember
provides
Holman.
space.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're already past the population threshold where we could do it. I think we're not far off from being a city big enough where we probably should do it. And I think it offers maybe some more consistency with the public that you're dealing with this municipal court, not, well, I might be at municipal court, then I might be over at the county courthouse. And people that go to the county courthouse all the time because they're looking for municipal court and all that type of stuff. And so that's why I'd be interested in pursuing it in the future for sure. But my question really was about the lobby. How big is that lobby waiting room? Because I know right now it can get pretty packed out in the one we have.
Sure. It's probably 30 by 15, 30 by 12. And the good thing about this lobby is as clients to the court can quickly be processed out of the lobby. Right now, they don't really have a good place to go. We have a small video room now, but they can quickly be processed. And so people that come in this, well, I'll use my little pointer.
Is that about the size of this room?
As long as this and maybe this wide here.
Yeah.
But they will immediately come in here
this
and
size.
funnel straight into this room.
Okay.
Whereas before we didn't have that opportunity to do that. Okay. This is, I should point out also that this is one example in the municipal complex of how the scope has changed from where we were in 2008. I started with Judy Simpkins back 2004, I think. We started talking about these courts, and court of record was just way out there. Well, now our population dictates that we really need to consider it. But in the 2015 plan we had about 9,000 feet set aside, and then the balance was going to be used for finance. And then we realized that this juvenile court and this intermediate holding room, the importance of all that, and also the security. We worked in conjunction with Brinkley Sargent out of Dallas. They do municipal buildings and police stations and fire stations. They're nationally, they're superb, and they've done a really nice job of containing the people in the court. Because Rhonda can tell you stories how these people just disappear. It's like they go out the back door, they go to the bathroom, and then they're never seen again. And this design contains those people so that the proper actions can be taken care of. We don't have to worry about that anymore. I think
the flow of this court will be good too because of security. Like right now, we have one municipal court officer. I mean, in the future, I see us having maybe another court officer, because right now, one officer, we may have 55 people on a docket, and they're going through one
area, which he can't be in every area of the court. So just the world that we live in today, just the security alone, this facility will be a lot better.
Yes.
Thanks, Rick. This is the one I'm probably most excited about. For as long as I've been on council, getting the municipal court into its own space, out of the police department.
I think that's real important.
And I know the police department needs that space too, but the municipal court and having a real court that reflects, I think, where our community's at. And it's already a tough enough time for people that are there, and it doesn't need to be made harder by a 40-year-old facility that's kind of run down and packed out. So, thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, we'll move to the next one.
So the next would be the police station. We again we're reworking the entry. That includes this whole new planter and steps going up that are pretty damaged. We'll replace all of those. And then this is the area where the current municipal court added building was. That will be taken away. We'll reclaim those parking spaces. And then the plan. Okay, so there's a basement in this. Is this that one? Which one did you use to dial it? There you go. In that building, the emergency communications will be moving out of that area, so we're going to reclaim that space. We're going to leave a couple of extra stations there, just as added backup. So we're going to basically reclaim all that area here. Currently, the basement is not accessible, so we're going to be adding an elevator. We're going to be moving the exercise room down here, reworking the toilets, and then on the ground floor, we're going to leave the current toilets. We're going to renovate those. The existing lobby will stay the same. New finishes, and then so this upper corner right here is kind of the area where the court was. So all of these would be new offices. We've got a new community room here that I think it seats 30 something. That could be used for training. It could be used for community meetings. It could be used for when there's an event going on. They could be doing press conferences out of there. A lot of these areas in the light, the kind of purple area, are all existing areas that are remaining, that are just getting new finishes. The blue areas are areas of minor renovation, like this is like the briefing room, and that's currently there. We're just kind of reworking that area and updating it. The toilets here, one big area that we're renovating back here is the locker room. We're enlarging that quite a bit. We're putting in it's really a unisex locker room, and then based off of that, we're going to have separate showers, changing facilities behind doors. And then the again, a lot of this was all based on programming meetings with the police department of kind of what their needs and their growth are over the next 25, 30 years, and this plan is based on that.
And Kevin might address some of this, but we addressed all of the current needs and projected needs in the future for what the police station will need, and it's with this station we'll be able to satisfy the needs and requirements and not have to build a new building. So is that right? Yeah.
Councilmember Scanlon?
I may have missed it as you were going through the diagram, but as I sit in records now doing grunt work, And when somebody comes in and wants to see a police officer, they call up dispatch, and dispatch will send somebody out to talk to them. And they hold conversations in the lobby, which just ain't right. So where would they go in this floor plan?
We have what they call soft interview rooms. There's several of those rooms just off the hallway where they can bring people out of the lobby and have a private conversation. Whether it's a contested conversation or just, I want to share an event that I saw, and they can take their
And
statement.
you sometimes see several of those going on at one time. It is a privacy nightmare for all concerned.
Yeah, we've got plenty of rooms over there on that one hallway that can be used for those interviews.
Councilmember Holman?
Definitely agree with that. Need more space dedicated for that. But if you haven't toured the police department, I definitely encourage you to do it. I think it's in the worst shape of all the buildings in the municipal complex. It's not what I would consider a real great work environment, especially when other departments around the metro area have all built brand new ones, actually. So we're going to renovate this one. I think it's a great thing to attract the kind of officers that we want. And when this building was built, one of the more notable things that I've noticed when I've gone in and looked at it is when it was built, I think we had maybe one female officer at that time, and we have many more now. And I think their locker room is just a 2-stall bathroom, and the basement being the way it is as well, and with dispatch moving out of it, a lot of extra space. This is another one that I've been really looking forward to as well. Just walking through there, it's kind of dark in there, and I would hate to see what the above the ceiling tiles looks like in there too.
No, this.
I know there's a whole comm system in there that doesn't really work anymore, or something like that, and old holding cells that have never been used for holding.
Or do they know where the
prisoners.
keys are? Those are fascinating.
Yeah. Stuff like that. So it's a pretty interesting building, but I'm excited to see these renovations. One thing I didn't see on here, because it's not really inside the building, but I know I've had several officers over the years ask me about it just in passing, and that was secured parking, a secure parking lot.
We're
So-
working to address that as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
So gated entry, that type of thing. So
Part of the next phase.
okay. But yeah, other than that, it looks good. I'm ready to get all of this going. Can't get it fast enough.
Well, again, this building, they'll be the last in the chain reaction of how these buildings will be done, because we have to wait for the court to vacate. But not to say that there could be some intermediate steps done to do some of the work. That's not the most efficient way to do your construction, but I think if there's some packages we could bid that could be knocked out where they didn't have to wait 2.5 years to get started, I think we ought to look at that.
I would think that locker room might be I'm maybe different, Chief, but I think that locker room might be a big deal.
In this project, we're proposing to utilize the construction manager at risk model, so those packages could be put together given the duration of it in a hard bid form. This really lends itself well to the construction manager at risk, so we can put together different bid packages as plans come online and phase in. Do that as well. So that was what will be pursued here.
City Manager?
Of course, the development of the Emergency Operations Center and the Comm Center advancing, I think that will free up the opportunity. That basement will start getting very quiet here, hopefully, a year from now. So the timing could be great for that as well.
Councilmember Scanlon?
The first phase is 15 months, I think you said, approximately. So what, time-wise, we'll begin the court, I guess, 15 months, 16 months.
It's
How
in
long
your
does that
handout.
take?
Yeah, check your handout, it's got that.
Yeah,
have that handout.
Councilmember
sorry,
Scanlon, I had to look at it as well. It's under your ledge.
I legislate.
Yeah,
It's
iLedge.
attachment B to your memo. But yes, sir, to give you some idea, that would be about
That's what I was looking for earlier. Where
about a
is
10
it?
to 12 month construction on the development center to begin. And
It's under iLegislate.
Oh,
Okay.
it's actually in the
And
memo.
it's the staff report, and the
Oh, okay.
timeline is on the last page.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, sir, but then this is kind of proposed today, but again, there may be some, as we talk about the HR building or HRIT building, and then additionally the renovations that could happen in City Hall. Some of that could be packaged together along with just a full overhaul of buildings, so it doesn't have to necessarily be linear completely in its structure.
But just in a really abbreviated, we are looking at starting this, the development center would start first quarter of 2020. We think it'll take the majority of next year, and by the time it's finished, drawings will be completed on the court. It'll be bid, and as soon as they move out, the court starts towards the end of 2020. We think it will take 8 to 10 months, and then again, police drawings will be completed, bid, and then after that, the police station will be started, and it will be the most complicated construction because the building's occupied. It's going to be slow, and we're going to pay a premium to get it done because the contractor can't just move in like on these first two buildings and go to work. And we think it could be a 12-month, maybe 10. I mean, there's just a lot of things throughout the whole building. So basically, it's about a 3-year window starting at the end of this year.
Very much dominoes.
Yes.
Councilman Patron?
I guess my question is for the chief. Do you feel like that this is, I mean, it looks, because I'm not familiar with architecture, looking at plans, it looks tight squeezed. Is this a 15 to 20 year for you? Is this something we can grow?
Yes, that is something we can grow in. It provides a lot more space, particularly with the municipal court moving out.
Okay.
Still the parking and secure parking, like.
Yeah, and
Councilmember
hopefully
Holton
that
brought
could
up.
come quicker than the 3 years, I would think. The exterior parking issue, maybe.
Easy.
I'd like to see that happen quickly, but.
Councilman Holman?
I was just gonna say, I guess if we had to, there's that courtyard in the back that we could add on.
Could we go back to the site plan real quick? Let me just show you, yeah, what we're looking at, this area. Right now, this south side of this main part, this east parking lot, I'm sorry, is leased to the post office. And that may become available. So we could either enclose like this, or we could go ahead and take it all the way over here. And in the interim, the police or the post office could have access into that fenced area, or not. But that's what we're looking at.
Yeah,
And we would close some of these driveways to make it more secure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the new James Garner Avenue exactly is going to look like yet. So I know a lot of police personnel park on the other side of the street on the track side over there, and I don't know if those parking spots will even be there anymore. So I mean, everybody's going to have to park, in the municipal area. So, but I see there is a parking lot or a courtyard on the back of the building where it looks like we could add on, more to the building if we had to add on more space. But yeah.
Councilmember Bierman?
Why would the post office be giving up their space?
Because their lease might expire.
That's our spaces, actually. We own, they lease them from us,
But where do they use it?
Partially.
partially.
Their staff, just staff parking.
But it's primarily staff back there, and they've had discussions over the years about the future of that facility there, or if they will still continue to utilize back a house there, or if that operation moves to Rock Creek or wherever, and it just becomes a storefront there. So there's been conversations about that over the last 6-7 years I've been here, 7 years.
Because it would seem that if we're outgrowing the courthouse, or potentially on that direction, we'd be in the same direction of outgrowing our main post office.
Yeah, that just means I want to start thinking about it now, so that if we do, I don't I feel like if I don't ask this question now, 18 months from now, when we're like, hey, the post office needs to go somewhere, I'm going to be like, I really wish I had asked that question 18 months ago, because that parking was the first sign.
No, there's a process. I don't think they build many post offices anymore. Primarily, they lease them. They lease buildings, such as is the case here, and they lease them in different directions. And there's a pretty lengthy process they go through. A lot of public meetings and stuff if they look to relocate one from its area. This is a pretty good area, so we would encourage them to stay somewhere in the central part of the world for that in the future. But to answer your question, those are our spaces, and they used to lease them $1 a year. That rate's changed since then, since some rework. So but they're there's potential for us to need them as well.
Well, I'm fine with us having them. I was just concerned about what that meant for the post office. So,
Well, they have talked about, discussions have been had for a number of years that maybe they're gonna leave, they're not, they're gonna go. So it's been in conversation.
Councilmember Wilson?
The city maintenance on the one slide, are we currently using that for maintenance or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are? Okay.
And it's,
So that nothing new is happening there?
no, and just as a plug, because Brenda's not here, if that wasn't part of our tour, we can take a tour someday. You will find that that facility will greatly need to be enhanced in the future. It is woefully woefully not adequate for what we have. Particularly one of the challenges we've had, just as a sidebar, on the new libraries, we've had 2% attic storage on a number of, so we get 2% of ceiling tiles and other things. We're talking an 80 square foot building. That's a lot of material that we have for future. You know, tile goes bad, a floor tile, pieces. That's a lot of material. That's where it's stored, and it's getting tighter. And as we look towards other Norman Ford projects and that 2%, so as there's been discussions about future maintenance facilities and others, this very much has to be in the mix of that conversation about what the future of that will hold. It also could be a really valuable commercial corner when May and Gray go two-way and James Garner's built. So it may actually need to be a different location
Looks
altogether.
like the post office goes away too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Holman?
That was just going to be my same question since we were talking about the post office parking. I know that maintenance is not. That's actually like 3 or 4 different individual storefronts next to each other, but
Right.
I know that's not in the budget for any kind
Absolutely.
of remodel or anything.
It will
so-
need its own project in the future and a more detailed discussion, as we do with all of our maintenance facilities, as you know,
And
Fleet and others.
I would rather our city maintenance facility not be high-profile, valuable storefront space on Gray Street in the future.
As part of our
So-
master plans at North Base or other things.
Yeah, that could be nonprofit incubator, whatever space.
Yeah, definitely.
Just commercial space.
Or just commercial space that we could sell.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So those 3 buildings are the 3 buildings that are part of the bond. The other 2 buildings that we looked at, which is currently Building C, which Human Resources and IT would be in this building here. So this is a new entry. Again, looks very similar to the others. This is the new walkway that we added that connects it to City Hall. Around the perimeter of the building, the things that we've done. So currently, so here's the current drive-through right here. So we're taking that away. We're leaving the drive where it is as a drop-off area. The print shop will remain in there, and we've got pulled out a small mail room. I guess all of the mail comes through that area. So there's a lot of people that come in and out of here with supplies. There's also this half of the building would be IT. This half would be HR. We've got kind of an IT desk help center that a lot of the police officers come in and use if they have problems with their laptops, their phones, iPads. The front entry would be the same. We've expanded the waiting room here, made it a little more enclosed. All of these offices are pretty much existing. We've reworked some area right here. We've enlarged and added a conference room for HR, also a separate conference room over here for IT. A big thing that we've changed here is utilities is in this area right now. They would be moving over to the development center. We've got 2 large training rooms here. One a computer training center, and then one general training center that a lot of city staff use for various training. Right now, we've got one room that's probably about this size right here, about half the size of the computer room, so greatly expanded that area. Again, we've gone back to a central break room into this area. We're going to renovate the, I know these toilets were currently renovated. We're going to update some finishes in there. Also, we didn't mention is we got accessibility ADA reports in all these buildings. We're addressing all of the issues
Those
in
elements of the
those.
transition plan will be handled through this project, which will free up money in that budget line item for the capital in the future for other
Right.
items.
And then just kind of freshening up this building.
So, I think one of the things to take away from this is probably one of our least, if not the least, publicly used buildings. The only
Right.
really public that have interaction would be the HR for people for job applications and so forth. So it's primarily a staff type building where staff and others utilize those departments mostly. So it's got a little different feel to it. But our training was, we really saw how behind we were in training facilities when we started doing the new ERP. There were people training in just about every open room that was possible as we trained on those systems and so forth. So in the future, as we continue to train in softwares and things, this will be very valuable, and that training space will definitely be utilized a bunch.
Any questions with this building? Then the last building that we looked at is this building, 201, which is we're calling City Hall. So a lot of this building doesn't really change much. We are getting new finishes, new carpet, new paint, and a majority of it. We are building out the communications department right here in the what's currently the multi-purpose room. So we're doing a little bit of work in legal, and then in the offices, the admin offices, we're doing some work. We're moving some offices around, just kind of bringing things up. You know, they've got a storage issue for records. We're adding some new larger storage files. So just lots of renovations that have been needed from a long time. So
Let me mention, down here, we are making accommodations for an assistant city manager in the future, which I think is a position that's been discussed. There'll be a little bit of a room taken out of this admin assistant right here, and then the mayor will have, her office will shift to here, closer to the front.
Kicking me out.
But it will be secured entrance. I don't know where to point that out.
This isn't secure. We're also looking at this wing is the the upper administration of the city, and it's really almost the most vulnerable space in the whole city complex. So we're gonna increase the glass there for bomb-proof glass, and we've already put bollards around the perimeter. Also, the records room, which is all the old binders of all the minutes, will be fireproofed with a fire suppression that won't damage the records if there's a problem.
We set it off for records.
talk about the work in here.
Yeah.
We're tracking them outside.
So in the council chambers, we're adding a hearing loop. We're increasing the accessible seating in there. The new podium would be accessible for people, and then we're also adding a small desk for staff that they can sit at instead of
Carrying those giant books.
going back and forth.
Whack-a-mole.
Up to the, so it'll have microphones on it, so they'll be able to respond just
Be like
sitting
Senate
at,
hearings
so they won't have to get
where they
up
have
and
to
move
sit
back
at
and
the desk
forth.
and testify in
But
front
Miss
of us.
Wilson, you didn't answer our question.
You'll be like, I'm the council.
We talked about the accessibility at that podium. We'll be looking at the attempt to accelerate that aspect, because this building's really kind of last on the list, but
Right.
that's some low-hanging fruit we think we
Yeah.
can accomplish
This may
in
be
short
part of
order.
your upcoming capital discussions for the
And
upcoming
I
year. You
hope
might
we-
want to fund these little pieces.
I hope we do. We have made a lot of great strides with being inclusive in terms of our residents with different abilities, and we've all seen people in wheelchairs struggle to, first of all, be comfortable in City Hall and in this room, but come to the dais. And so I hope we do take care of that quickly.
We can.
Councilmember Holman.
So, it's not on here. I toured the space with Terry. The upstairs of this building, I know a lot of people may not even know this building has a second floor, but it does. And it's actually pretty nice up there. But from what I understand, the lack of a second entrance or exit out of it is why we don't use it for anything but storage space. You can actually access the clock tower from it also. It's really cool.
Brenda will let you climb up there. I think you need a key.
Yeah.
But,
Would you say we are covered by the insurance if we fall?
I did ask that question because a council member wanted
Be
to
the
get up
property
there. But,
I want to go up there. Anyway, it looked like it was definitely potential future usable space if that egress issue was addressed. So since we're, vast renovations of this building are going to need us to come up with capital funding anyway, if that's something that might be part of a plan that it may not happen for 20 years, but how a second exit out of the upstairs would work, where it would go maybe, and maybe what it would cost, because it was I was expecting to be just all piping and like Freddy Krueger up there, but it was it looked just like this, but with it was actually cool because it had the visible ductwork like you would see in some of these restaurants downtown, and I would want to work up there if I were Bryce. I'd want my office up there.
I
right
think
now.
Mr. Pyle, Daryl would like to work up there
Yeah.
someday too.
Sounds like City Hall hide and seek just went up a level.
And there's some cool stuff up there, but
That second floor is
Yeah.
primarily this L shape right here. And we need to incorporate a stairway somewhere in here. And that surely can be, one of our earlier schemes, we looked at taking this wall and pushing it out 12 feet to make this a larger study session.
yeah, I
And then
remember
we
one pushing
realized
it
that
that way too.
we've got it, we'll have it right over there. So now we got a small study session and a big study session and no expense to do.
Potentially stairs out here, maybe.
Yeah, there might, maybe some stairs outside.
That was definitely some pretty sizable, good space up there.
We'll look at that.
Thank you.
Want to show the model?
Yeah.
We'll do the cool flyover.
Yay. That's really what I'm here for.
I know. That's all I was looking for. More importantly, will our names be on the building?
Damn right they would.
I assume so, right?
I will give you a little plug as someone who has a few days left. I do want to just really give a nod to the staff. There was a lot of work, these are new concepts. We're putting a lot of departments together. Not that everybody works well here together, but a lot of thought went into this. A lot of thinking about how do we work well as a team. How can we maximize this for the team, and what does that mean for our future? And as Rick alluded to, the building through management partners and the new ERP systems, all that was taken into consideration, and we think really will lead to a wonderful concept, not only in the development center, but just in the other areas where we can really be efficient with our operations. And some of the staff had a hard time thinking about 20 years of additional staffing, because some haven't added staff in 20 years. So they were like, 0.
Didn't actually feel like that would probably be pretty easy.
So there had to be some additional work, but we think about the stormwater staff in the future. We think about what IT needs are and others. So a lot of good work that was done behind the scenes that I just want to give a plug to for while this was
I'd
loading.
like to second that. I mean, every department has been so informative and so cooperative. Even when we've had, like the development center, and we had all those department heads together, it was a really constructive session, and that's been very helpful. So we're going to get into more detail into each sub-department, like in the development center. We will talk detail of how that department works in and amongst itself. And so we'll have lots of communication over the next 90 to 120 days, because all of our efforts from this point go into the development center. So,
Yeah.
all right.
It's fine.
One thing we'd like to show you is that this courtyard, we've just done some conceptual renderings of the courtyard and how that might.
There you go, Stephen.
There you go.
City Hall.
And Abner Norman will still be there.
That's right. I asked about Abner.
around.
He'll be back.
Right.
Ghost.
What we're showing here, we got some fencing here. We just to access that courtyard, just to kind of close it off a little bit. It would be staff only. You already saw this. This is the front of the building. So the courtyard would be that area in between. So lots of seating area, lots of shade structures out there.
And this would provide, that access from that 100-person meeting room
Right.
cut through the courtyard.
So they could come out of the side here, go under this walkway, this covered walkway, and directly into the break room and right down that corridor.
Yeah, we envision maybe having, within, amongst the staff, you could organize morning exercise classes, like at 6:30 to 7:30.
I'm looking at Ken. I'm seeing Ken with yoga in the morning. Going on, he and Anthony.
Is that a handout, Councilmember Wilson?
No, I'm stretching. I'm sorry.
She's saying you needed a fire pit.
No, somebody told me frisbee golfing yesterday and my arm hurts.
That was
Dispensary.
So this is the area that this is the current employee, the dock that we're going to reuse. This is the new entry for the inspectors that would come in here.
If the dispensary could be a friendly market.
This building currently doesn't have a generator. We'll be adding a generator back here and putting a nice enclosure around it. There's several transformers and the gas meter and the main distribution panel already over there. As you can see here, there's the raised area right here that we're adding the new skylights over that central waiting area. So you can kind of see the courtyard area.
The other thing that we'll do this farthest be the farthest west entrance into today. As you know, when you come in here, there's 4 entrances that we have to watch, essentially, that our staff have to watch. So with this, it would, being an employee
2,
access, just
3,
be,
and 4.
right. The 4th would not have to be necessarily something we'd have to watch for visitors coming in, and when they try to go to the restroom and make the switch. There's a lot to that position.
We had a
that sits
fire in
out
the
there.
bathroom recently, right?
Yeah, I put that one out. Yeah. Jeff Ryan did.
We're gonna miss you so much,
thinking,
Terry.
Terry.
When they saw me on the news, they were like, yeah. Yeah.
Fire in the bathroom?
So they lit
A couple
one.
months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the screening around the courtyard will be access control for employees.
Have to work to get to that.
To keep us in.
So that's,
I think that's it.
that's kind of the scope. Terry, you want to kind of touch on costs, and I have some more updated information we can.
Right. So like I kind of alluded to earlier, we have a budget that's going to be challenged throughout this project. The numbers are going to Rick's still scrubbing through the numbers, and we'll have to develop a plan, but it will absolutely take some help from the capital to do this plan as it's presented today. Again, we're fortunate in that we have some years to work this through. We do have some general obligation bond money, so at least we have some money to do 3 of the. We could get it all together in that and make a case that it would work. That was probably a pretty big pipe dream to think through with given the parameters of the project. But you'll see also within this attachment on the project schedule, just kind of gave a suggestion of each capital year when the council wants to start having, and I believe you start those capital discussions in November, kind of as a kickoff, and then those really move into December and the work in February, that this project and what it might need from a financing standpoint to be supplemented with the general obligation bond. The other thing that the budget doesn't conceive at this point, the construction budget, is some of the soft costs. So we laid aside some money in this project when we built the capital budget for furniture and fixtures. Some of our buildings have good furniture. Some people buy their own chairs in some departments, and some like literally have the steel desk from 1950s. So our furniture is kind of all over the place, but starting to think through the funding of those things, the IT needs that will be needed, and some of the other soft costs in the project will also maybe an area of focus in the capital that will need to come with this discussion. As we alluded to earlier with the police department, the other thing to think about, I think, with this project going forward is that it's absolutely a tool we use to recruit talent. It's not just police, it's others. The new space could really be wonderful as we look to hire additional positions. Yeah. We look at that in the future. And as you know, with younger generation, which I can say now, right, as I'm knocking on that 40-year-old door in a few days, that facilities are absolutely something that's looked at and absolutely needed. So I know the council will make that commitment to this and make that commitment to our public buildings for that. So you can kind of see that moving forward, and Rick will be working to establish a budgetary schedule as we work through the numbers, sure. what we think the bond would do, and then what we think the capital would do. And as Jane and planning work on the capital plan, those discussions can be considered by council as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, right now, this is the very first draft of an estimate. We didn't even have time to put a memo together, but the development center right now is at 6.9 million. And I might say that what Jerry mentioned, the soft costs, when you drop that off of the 11.25, it leaves us with a net building fund of $10 million. That's our base number now. 6.9 on the development center, the municipal court at 2.7 million. The police is at 3.67 million. And so those three bond projects, which to me, here we are, like I said, 11 years later, we have $10 million to work with, and those three bond projects are 13.27 million. I think we can make that happen. It's going to take work to get there. The other two projects, HRIT, is roughly at 2 million, but I don't agree with that. I think there's something wrong in his numbers. We have to go back and meet with him and line item some things out. So, and then City Hall was at about 900,000 with some of the equipment things. So. And that's a total campus at 16.2. That's the first, and understand we're doing full. The cost estimates for each building are about 6 pages long. Line item all the way through, and that's based on some assumptions. It's based on about a 6-page written narrative we did on each building where we describe systems and materials and finishes and so they took our line drawings, and that really is just a schematic line drawing and that narrative, and built the estimate. They also put a contingency on there of 10% on top of that. So usually schematic estimates have a lot of cushion and comfort in them. Okay, so
This is a high number. Is that what you're saying?
I hope it's high. I really do. But I got to tell you, if you talk to any of the cost estimators, any other firms, contractors, there have been some bids that have been busted by almost 50%. Oh my God! Things are just really out of whack right now, and it's very uncertain where things will come in. If we can get the tariffs nailed down and leveled out, then we can start to do some. But right now,
Rick's going to work on that whole issue.
Get right on that.
I don't see that happening this year.
Send a tweet.
No. This presidential election year.
The inflation
Maybe by
factor
January 2021.
has been about 3.3 to 3.5 over the last few years. It's projected to be over 5 for this next year.
Wow. City manager?
16
I thought we had a
million,
business guy running
roughly.
What happened?
It would be easy to spend $16 million building a brand new police station from scratch on vacant land.
Definitely.
So when we think about all of the benefits that come from this plan, it's incredibly cost effective for the taxpayer. 16 million is a lot of money, but you're touching an awful lot of service provider space and an awful lot of opportunities to interact with the public. So I think we're getting a great value. We just got to make it all fit.
Yeah, Rick was actually happy when the first estimates came back. I think we were both like, whoa, that's pretty good.
Considering the court numbers came back better than I thought, but And then when you look at the whole site master plan, if you think 30 years, 40 years, it makes total sense, if you go back to the site plan, Greg, that the post office goes away and that becomes part of the municipal complex, the block. And that will, I think that'll take care of our community forever.
Yeah.
You know, I would hope so.
Until climate change.
In the next iteration.
That's a long
of-
time, but.
The next iteration of the council, you know, the municipal complex in 20 to 30 years, if we were to outgrow this plan, probably looks more like a major overhaul of, you know, something with a parking garage and a whole different thought process behind what we're doing at that time. But again, this is where we are today, and I know going forward, you'll want to grab that attachment. That might be a really nice talking point for you all as you answer questions out there. I want to put that together for you in the memo, just something you take with you moving forward, and know that'll
Thank you,
project's in
gentlemen.
good hands.
Any other questions or comments about this awesome project that we get to play a role in? All right,
Ready to go?
that's it for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Executive session, we have a quick executive.
Your project. I'll be glad to see it when it's finished.